Welcome to the Awakening with Kelvin Piri podcast, brought to you through our Bridges to Prosperity series. This is the place where we take African stories, African history, African potential, and connect them to the bigger picture of where our continent is heading by the year 2050. Today's topic comes directly from one of you, our viewers. After our last video, one subscriber made a bold and fascinating statement.
Zambia, Zimbabwe and Malawi need to form a federal state. The potential for the region will be monumental.
When I read that comment, I paused because it opened the door to a conversation. We rarely have a conversation about unity, history, development, and Africa's long-term future. Could these three countries ever unite again? Would it work? What would it look like? And what would it take to make it possible? Before we dive in, let me begin with an important disclaimer. Disclaimer. This episode is for education, historical reflection, and public dialogue. It is not political advice. It is not an endorsement of any government, party, or ideology. It is simply a conversation based on history, economics, and regional development. Listeners are encouraged to research further and form their own conclusions. The federation that once existed to understand the future, we must first understand the past. From 1953 to 1963, Zambia, Zimbabwe and Malawi existed as the Federation of Rhodesia and Nyasaland. But that federation was built on the wrong foundation. It was created by colonial authorities, not by the people. It favored one region economically, restricted African political participation, and was never intended to bring equality or prosperity to Africans. So when the winds of independence swept across the region, the federation collapsed. But let us be clear, the idea of integration was not the problem. The colonial design was the problem. What the federation revealed was something deeper. These countries were connected long before colonial borders, and the social, cultural, and economic ties have always remained. Which brings us to today's question. If these nations were brought together again, this time voluntarily, equally, and guided by African priorities, could it work? What these nations share today, when you study Zambia, Zimbabwe, and Malawi, you notice something interesting. These countries are not just neighbors, they are deeply interconnected. Start with the culture. At the Zambia-Malawi border, people speak the same language. They attend the same cultural ceremonies. A Chua person in Malawi is culturally indistinguishable from a Chua person in Zambia. Families live on both sides without seeing any difference. Travel south to Zambia and Zimbabwe and you find Tonga communities that stretch across both countries, one people separated only by a river. Those families share traditions, histories, and a worldview shaped long before any border was drawn. Beyond culture, these countries share a liberation story. Zambia paid a price for supporting independence movements, including those from Zimbabwe. Malawi's people experienced their own struggles under colonial rule. This shared past means all three nations understand the cost of freedom and the value of sovereignty. Economically, they also face similar realities: dependence on agriculture, mining, long supply chains, unpredictable commodity markets, and the challenge of adding value to raw materials. Their economies are structured in a way that makes cooperation not only possible but practical. And at a continental level, they are all part of SADC, COMESA, and the AFEFTA, meaning their policy pathways are already aligned in many areas. With so much in common, the idea of unity is not far-fetched. In fact, it is natural. The untapped potential of a federation now, let's imagine just for a moment what a federation between these three countries could unlock. The first thing that stands out is the population. Instead of Zambia negotiating as a country of around 22 million, Malawi with just over 22 million, and Zimbabwe with about 17 million, Together you have a united bloc of more than 60 million people. 60 million people represent a powerful internal market, a strong consumer base, and a magnet for investment. Then look at minerals. Zambia's copper and cobalt are some of the most strategic minerals on earth today. Zimbabwe's lithium is attracting global attention, not to mention gold and platinum. Malawi holds rare earth minerals that are critical to modern technology. Separately, each nation negotiates with international corporations from a position of weakness. Together, they could negotiate as equals. Transport and access to the sea is another game changer. One of Africa's biggest challenges is that many of our economies are landlocked. But with unity, that problem disappears. Malawi gives access through the Nacala corridor into Mozambique. Zimbabwe offers access through Beira. Zambia already has established routes to Walvis Bay in Namibia. Suddenly, a federation has multiple sea outlets, a logistical advantage that transforms trade. Energy is another powerful area. Zambia has tremendous hydropower potential. Zimbabwe has solar and hydro potential through Kariba. Malawi has untapped waterways that can be developed. A united energy strategy could mean stability, lower costs, and reduced dependency on external suppliers. And then you have agriculture and food security. Zambia's farmlands combined with Malawi's fertile soils and Zimbabwe's commercial farming potential could turn the federation into one of Africa's leading food producers. Tourism rounds off the picture. Imagine a single visa, one entry, giving access to Lake Malawi, South Luangwa, Victoria Falls, Mana Pools, Kariba, and the Lower Zambezi. That alone is transformative. The potential is massive. The true foundation, the border communities. But here's the thing, federations don't begin with government signatures, they begin with people. And when you look at the border communities, something becomes clear. These people have already formed their own informal federation. They cross to visit relatives, they attend weddings across borders, they sell goods to each other, they speak the same languages, their cultures are aligned, their way of life is intertwined. If unity were ever to succeed, it would be because the people already laid the foundation long before politics got involved. These border communities are the living evidence that unity is not an abstract idea, it's a natural reality. Could a federation work today? Now let's take a realistic view. Could a federation work today? Yes, but it would not be simple. It would require political will, serious political will, not just speeches. It would require harmonized laws, shared economic strategies, and a willingness to let certain decisions be made collectively rather than individually. It would require honest conversations about sovereignty, governance structures, resource management, currency issues, and immigration. But nothing great is ever achieved easily. The European Union didn't emerge overnight. East Africa's integration took decades. ECOWAS has been evolving since the 1970s. Unity is a process, and we are in the early stages of that process. With SADC's cooperation, COMESA integration, and the AFIS-FTA now opening borders, the groundwork for a future federation is already being laid slowly but steadily. What would a modern federation look like? A modern federation between Zambia, Zimbabwe, and Malawi would not erase national identity. Zambia would remain Zambia, Zimbabwe would remain Zimbabwe, Malawi would remain Malawi, but the level of cooperation would deepen significantly. You could have a shared market, joint infrastructure projects, coordinated energy planning, a more harmonized immigration system, shared educational exchanges, and even a regional passport over time. The strength of a modern federation lies in unity without losing identity, just like the East African community, where each country remains sovereign but gains strength through integration. This is the kind of unity Africa needs, unity that respects borders, but does not allow those borders to limit potential. Unity that puts development above politics. Unity that recognizes that together we are far stronger than we could ever be alone. Final closing and call to action. So is a Zambia-Zimbabwe Malawi Federation possible? Yes, it is possible. Not easy, not immediate, but absolutely possible. These nations are tied by history, culture, borders, families, and dreams. If they ever chose to unite, even gradually, the result would be a powerful regional bloc rich in minerals, agriculture, energy, tourism, and human capital. The question is not whether it can be done. The question is whether we are willing to imagine a different future, a future built on cooperation rather than division. Thank you so much for joining me on today's episode of the Bridges to Prosperity series. If you found value in this conversation and if you want to support more discussions like this, please do me one favor. Hit the like button, subscribe and smash that notification bell so you never miss any of our deep dives into Africa's future. Your support helps this message reach more people and keeps this important conversation alive. Until next time, this is Kelvin Peary reminding you that we rise higher when we rise together. Stay blessed, stay focused, and keep building bridges to prosperity.